I'm going to say this about MrGirl. This guy has the personality of a serial killer. So finding out that he's getting a gun just fills me with such. But he's like the personality of a serial killer, but like he would never hurt a fly, you know.
If I find myself talking a little bit softer on this particular review, it's only because there are plenty of lyrics on this album that I wouldn't really want to be overheard repeating or have to explain why they are coming out of my mouth. That's the level of warning I am going to give you about even listening to this review. If someone overhears you listening to the lyrics of this album repeated by me, it might take some explaining. So that's your warning. I'm going in depth about the new MrGirl album.
What you reviewing? What you reviewing? What you reviewing?
The new MrGirl album, Boundaries. And it's definitely going to push some boundaries of mine, yours, and everyone else in the world. But I'm willing to dive into this particularly because not only do I think it's very good, often very funny, it's a great story, and it's really fascinating to me, and also I'm one of the few people who can appreciate the full breadth, maybe not even the full breadth, and I'm going to have Vizier cutting in here to add some stuff in because he's actually watched more of MrGirl's video catalog than I have.
Hi, I'm Riley. I'm the Vizier of Ygg. I help produce and edit the Ygg Studio branch's Ygg content. I'm also the producer of The Dick Show, and I've booked MrGirl in there a couple times. I've actually been pretty familiar with MrGirl's content for about a year and a half to 2 years now because of Vito Gesualdi tweeting about it and promoting the channel back even before the Cuties review. I've seen all the content on his channel since then, and I keep up with him weekly, so I'm fairly confident that I can fill in any gaps or answer any questions that you have during your review, Trixie.
I haven't seen all of the MrGirl videos, so I have been impressed with pretty much everything I've seen. So I really enjoy the videos. I really enjoy the ones where he's talking over movie footage and making some kind of broad point about society. Those are usually really well done. I haven't seen everything again, but I think that he's a solid content creator. I had a conversation with him one time in a podcast that never ended up getting released because it was on a computer I didn't have access to for a while. But I've talked to MrGirl. I think he's interesting. He's really intense, in my opinion. He's a guy who, looks straight ahead. There's a lyric on this album about it that's pretty fucking funny. But he's, somebody who really tries to kind of bring you out of your comfort zone, and not in like a way that's necessarily unfair to do. It's like somebody has to be able to point out the inconsistencies and hypocrisies of society and of the people that they talk to. It's just rare that you will meet somebody who is so blunt and so willing to kind of get in your face and make you think about something or force you to have an opinion, and not always by his own fault. And I think really the opening song on this album, this gets us really in deep, real quick, into what are the, controversial aspects of MrGirl's personality that have forced everyone to have a strong opinion about him. So, the first lyrics here. You're playing Minecraft in a cave, looking for diamonds. That's funny. I'm in the same cave, looking for miners. 'Cause my sexual attraction to miners is major. Can't even play hopscotch without popping a rager. Now, these lyrics in particular, I think, are obviously meant to be funny. They're over the top, they're referential, they have wordplay. He's looking for miners. You could imply that he's talking about miners, people who mine, but because it's Minecraft in particular, which is known to have a, very young fan base, it's like, okay, that seems to be the implication. And then, saying my sexual attraction to minors is major is like, well, minors don't have a comparison to majors. if we're talking about with an E. So it only makes sense if he's talking about children. So that's where you start to go, oh, and then can't even play hopscotch without popping a rager is obviously a joke. So it's humorous, but in a very in-your-face and, calling himself a fucking pedophile kind of way. Why would somebody be willing to do that? Why would somebody put it upon themselves to be the guy who's going to make the jokes about being a pedophile? Well, we'll get into that as we go along here. Always been a pervert, so I accept the insults. When I was a kid, I fucking molested adults. I love these lyrics. So he's immediately telling you, like, look, whatever you're going to say about me, I've always been ready for this. I've had I molested adults as a child, I've been oversexed for so long, it's beyond what any of you can compare. And then he does some call-outs. Shoe on Head, Dead Wing, and Moist Hypocritical, who I guess got him banned by talking about him on YouTube. He's, got some pretty decent bars here about how how you shouldn't fuck around with Max. I knew him when he only had 4K subs, all L's, no dubs, no love, hold up, cause show enough. I fucked up every goddamn chance I've been given, priapism, never let up, the sky's the limit. The way that Max raps those bars is a super unique flow, it sounds really good. He's great at getting you into the emotional state of mind of whatever bars he's spitting at that time. So at the start, when he's being satirical, he sounds over the top and cartoonish, kind of like I did when I read the lyrics, but in a different way. And then he, goes into more serious rapper mode when he's calling out these people. But then when he's talking about his L's, he sounds sad and, kind of his flow is almost walking back and, he's building himself back up. Even though he fucked up every damn chance he's been given, he never let up, the sky's the limit, and it sounds like he's building back up emotionally. So that's the stuff that really drives the performances on this album, is his ability to, really use flow to convey an emotion. And granted, he is helped by the fact that a lot of the emotions that he is sharing with us are things that Eminem has tackled in the past. So there is a lot of stuff that just sounds like Eminem, and that's fine. Sounding like Eminem is a good thing. He's coming at a lot of those subjects from a slightly different angle. He's nowhere near as over the top because he's much more interested in just sharing direct experiences from his life that fucked him up and the results of exactly what he's into in a very direct way. There's not a lot of extra mythology built onto it, basically. And I think a big part of that is because of the fact that he's in his 30s. He's approaching this from the perspective of I've had a lot of time to think about this shit, and I'm really getting it out in the rawest way possible. And in a way, it almost makes me sad just that he feels so intensely about this stuff, because I'm 30 and I don't feel this intensely about anything. I can't summon this level of rage or of anger at any particular individuals, even at my critics, to keep rapping in this lane of sound. And I'm somebody who has been known for presenting a very honest character that is very confrontational, that is willing to, make jokes about a lot of the same stuff. But I never took it this far. And that's what I like about MrGirl, is that it's a better version of the Digibro shtick, basically. I stopped being a character like this. MrGirl is leaning into it much harder because he's just got a lot more to say about it. And it's fascinating to me that... So, as we get into this next part of this song, because this song really is a good overture to the album, he says, I'd say mind your business, but I need mindless critics to advertise my sick shit. You say I'm addicted, but you keep humping my leg. Now that's addiction. No rap, no convictions, but I rap with conviction. So, this came out not long, I believe, after the I'm a Pedophile rap, which is a parody of the I'm a Criminal rap by Eminem, except it's about being a pedophile. And it's ridiculously over the top and fucking hilarious. It's honestly much less uncomfortable than anything that's on this album because it is so dishonest and comical. Whereas the thing that launched all this pedophile accusation at MrGirl is that he was involved in a review of the movie Cuties, in which he talks about how the movie made him uncomfortable because of the fact that it made him feel turned on, by the way that it portrays the young girls in their skimpy outfits. And he was like, yeah, it made me uncomfortable. But I think that's also what makes it, kind of accomplished what it was setting out to do. This is me paraphrasing, because I haven't listened to this whole bit myself. The way that he talks about this stuff on this album, the next lyric, you still got suspicion that I'm a pedo. I'm surprised I'm not, because my mom, the lesbo, had a bitch, but she thought I was special. I'll never forget the time she said so. She kicked me out because she was afraid she'd rape me. Her little 16-year-old baby, it breaks me. And if I ever have my own kid who hates me, I promise I'll at least wait until you're 18. Which is a fucking hilarious bar to lead into the chorus, I can fantasize about whatever I want, because he did literally just fantasize about it and, have it there in the lyric. But the idea is that it's like a morally better, I'll be better than my mom because at least I'll wait till you're 18, but that's the expectation that he has of himself as a potential reality of what feelings he might have because of what has happened to him, And so it seems like a big theme on this album is that he relates to pedophiles, but not because he is one. He's like, I'm surprised I'm not, in the lyrics. But then he talks about these experiences that obviously did fuck him up, that did give him a weird hyper-accelerant sexuality that he will describe in more detail on other songs, but isn't really specific to the, to being a pedophile. And I don't think that him saying that Cuties made him uncomfortable because it made him feel attracted to the characters is him saying that he's a pedophile. I think it's him saying that the movie, goes out of its way to make the characters not feel like children. It goes out of its way to sexualize them to a level of success that made him uncomfortable. Whether he was actually, aroused or beating off to Cuties, which he's going to joke about doing now on this album, because his standpoint on all of this has been okay, whatever you're going to say about me, I was ready for you to say some shit. I was ready to make a joke about whatever you were going to call me. This is not what I expected. That is a current running through this album. And that is a part of it I can relate to, because I'm somebody who has stood up for Lolicon in the past. And, I could get into stories about why I was ever interested in that category myself, or why I think it's defensible. I'm honestly not as inclined to try and do that. I'd rather let him do this crusade and me just talk about it and why I think it's interesting. But, I'll get as I'll maintain my boundaries throughout the Boundaries album. The hook on the song is fantastic. I can fantasize about whatever I want. You can't stop what happens in my head till I'm dead. This is a song that happens in my head a lot now because the chorus is really catchy. And I love the haunting synth strings in the background that it really kind of is structured like a clipping song. And I'll give it to Max. I assume he produced this whole album himself. It sounds like a one-person production, and it's so specific. The emotions of the sound of each song are so specific to the lyrics that it makes me feel like it had to be engineered for the lyrics, which is powerful. It's not something I have ever really accomplished. So I think if he produced all this, it's really good on a musical writing level. I think that the actual delivery of the sound, though, because there's, when I compare it to like a clipping song, clipping will use the most unique sounds, and they have like the deepest understanding of how to create specific noises to make their songs with, to give them this like, this richness and thematic coherence with the songwriting that just takes it to another level. And I'm not like blaming Max for not having the manpower or knowledge to do that, especially on his first album. But like for a project made by yourself, this thing is fucking fantastic, and it's, memorable. I consider the music to be memorable in spite of the fact that like I could maybe stand to hear it like remastered or something, which I don't think that needs to happen or anything like that. It's good enough to be in my head. It's good enough. But, I do hope that on future releases, Max will go more all in on some of the stuff that sounds best on this album. This song continues to be pretty funny. I like the line about how the older I get, the more my demons grow hungry. And then about his girlfriend's hairy armpits making his penis feel funny. He won't spare you the details, even if that's what you want. Like your uncle remarried two she-males. Nuance. Fucking hilarious line. Then he goes into some more detail about the trauma in his family. It's interesting that his only real recollection about his dad that I remember on this album is when he's right here. He says, "One time my dad said he thought on my throat. It was late afternoon, forgot to call on the phone. Sometimes that picture showing up at his house, shoving a motherfucking gun in his mouth," which, I don't know. It seems like you're a lot angrier at him than just over that one incident if you're imagining going to shoot him in the mouth. But then, he goes on into more detail about stuff like his mom asking him, "What's a motherfucker?" And then, like, kissing him on the neck. Gross. I think this is a really interesting rap in that it's simultaneously like, here's just how fucked up things actually were for me. And here's, some level of reveal of how that actually messed me up. But the main thing that I've taken away from it is that I can fantasize about whatever I want. I can say whatever I want. I can, go to whatever extremes because, to not do so is to not allow me to work through what I've actually been through, And the line at the end of the song, the one that makes you tear your hair out thinking, is it right or it's wrong? Is he trolling, mentally ill, or just horrible? The scariest thing about him is that he's normal. And I think that's debatable. I think that, he's normal enough. I think that the point he's making in the song is that it's normal for people to have, something in their fantasies that other people just would not agree with, that like it's not unusual to have a guarded sense of self that, only someone like Max is willing to actually reveal in songs like these. Track 2, Scapegoat, goes much deeper into the history of Max's familial issues. The divorce was my fault. Well, yeah, but which one? Doesn't matter. Always been blamed for shit from as far back as grade school. Can't hang out with our son. He's supposed to be straight, but you keep making him come. So this one goes into, again, lots of detail of like over-the-top sexuality and stuff that he experienced and confusion about his identity, his art class giving him the nickname Death, getting in trouble for writing about racism when he was 16 and then getting called a racist for the way that he wrote about it. I found that relatable because I made a huge mistake in a AP art writing class of writing about the Martin Luther King Jr. speech in the Boondocks. And so, like, him ending up getting considered a racist because of his defense of black people or whatever. Yeah, that's something I can relate to, as well as he says he got arrested talking about Virginia Tech. And I did not get that, but I did get in trouble in school for writing a depressing story one time that made someone think I might hurt a teacher. And at the time, I lived on Virginia Tech Trail. This was just the name of the road I lived on. And it was not long after that had happened. So yeah, I relate to some of the struggle that Max is going through of basically like having a really kind of odd upbringing and therefore having difficulty like coming into society from a standpoint of like, you know, I'm trying to be rational about what I'm seeing and experiencing, but that's not really the expectation of the people around me. So, you know, it causes me to be the scapegoat. But why'd you put this stuff in my head? I'm done with it, man. I'd rather fucking be dead. I'm not your emotional trash can. Never asked to be Batman. I'm retired from being your bitch. I'm tired of your shit. It's a really good hook. This one really like has a bottoming out feel in the hook where like you really feel that the song has gone dark. No, this is probably the least like jokey song on this album, honestly. This is the one where he's the most just, well, other than Boundaries. Those two and the last one are the most like sincere, where he's really like telling you his story and being like really open about his insecurities and his you know, violent thoughts about like just all the people who have fucked up his life and made him have these night terrors. See, and I don't even know if I want to repeat some of these lyrics, but oh, it's a witch hunt, that explains the faggots at my feet, which is really funny because it's bundles of sticks that are used to light up pyres, so it makes sense. But I think it's a pretty funny lyric. Flag it in retreat, you want me to quit, bitch, you're not gonna win this, because I got these kids flipping over bars like gymnasts. These are all like pretty good lyrics. Just fun, like rampaging against the haters type shit. You know, talking about the people who get him deplatformed and all that kind of stuff. I'm already woke, you sure my songs are just jokes? I'm deep throating this game, bitch, I'm not gonna choke. You can't break my fucking spirit cause it's already broke. Now I'm coming for yours, black fillet, call me the goat. I love that. Yeah, then he goes to the chorus again. So yeah, that's like a little bit of an introduction to him as more of like a hard rapper, a more serious and personal one than like the first track where it opens on an outright joke, even if it gets really dark and serious as it goes. It's an interesting like tunneling effect that you get through the first few tracks on this album as it goes just like kind of deeper and darker. But then Hi Cuties, the next one, is probably the most insincere. I try to spit the truth, chop it up, and I post it. I do this shit for you, pop it on when you're hopeless. When no one wants to hold your hand or fondle your cock, you're 36. Oh, that's my biological clock. Says it's time to be a rapper. New package, saved ingredients. Rap till they believe in it, Max. Don't get lenient. You say I abuse Shaylin. It's not like I'm choking the bitch, but she says she can't breathe. Guess I'm a chauvinist. That referring to Derek Chauvin. A chauvinist. The guy who, you know, sat on the neck. So, you know... It's double entendre. Comparing himself to Derek Chauvin is probably not the most agreeable lyric for everybody. So like as he goes deeper, I don't know. I guess it's not that insincere. The opening part was pretty sincere. It's actually mostly another one about how he's like upset with Creepshow Art stealing their fans because they're, I guess, really all over his shit. I get that. He says, you keep sending your fans and they keep making deathy threats. You say you've got PTSD, so that makes me stressed. I bought a 99 for 599.99. Now I'm fine. I can't leave house without it. We're going to fucking kill you, Max. You need help. But if my fans harass you now, I'll fucking shoot their ass myself. So yeah, Max is like, hey, I fucking don't want my fans to harass you any more than I want yours to harass me. Just lay the fuck off. I think that's pretty respectable. The chorus on this one, hi cuties, hi, what's up cuties? I want to tell you bitches about my new favorite movie. Hi cuties, hi cuties. It's about some 11-year-olds shaking their booties. It's funny. It's kind of catchy. It's not my favorite. It's just so blunt. It's just so on the nose. That's what I mean when I say it's the most, like, insincere. Like, the chorus is just deliberately so fucking over the top. I like the predators against ads, repetitive Skillshare ads. I ended up buying 9 gats. I pet him like I'm petting my cats. Then he says, I'm the new Amos Yee. This was the moment I knew that not a lot of people were going to understand this album as well as I was. Because Amos Yee is an infamous pedophile who's been convicted multiple times for sexual misconduct with minors, who somehow developed a presence on the internet with his, like, desire to try and make it more okay to be a pedophile. And, like, he just had a ton of money for some reason that he would donate to all kinds of content creators and try to get them to promote his messages, including me. And I straight up made a clip where I just, like, said, hey, bro, I think it's wrong. Like, you know, I stand for, like, imaginary shit and anime because it's, you know, it's whatever. But, you can't just go petitioning for this stuff. So I lost his support pretty quickly, along with a lot of people. I don't know where he's at right now. Probably prison. But yeah, calling himself the new Amos Yee is pretty fucking funny. Y'all stink at censorship, couldn't even make a band stick. Yeah, Max Carson, I'm a fucking bad person and in touch with that darkness. That's why I spaz start ship and spit raps heartless. A whack wordsmith saying backward shit, sneaky like a black starship, freaky like a fucking cat barking. That's kind of funny. There are some heavy N-bombs on this record that I'm not going to repeat. Some of them are very cleverly placed and have some good wordplay. There's one that I'm definitely going to have to draw attention to, at very least, in a different song. Oh, here we go. Like, Max, what's your opinions on the Palestinians? I'm like I'm a pick a victim because they freaking tip of my dick is missing. I want it back, fuckers. How's that for a peace talk? Fuck your fairy tales. I'm jacking my beanstalk. That shit's funny. Then he's got the boogie warning shot line. I ain't boogie, motherfucker, warning shot. That's what song is. Get off my lawn, kids. We're gonna watch this Netflix movie about this blonde bitch. So basically he's threatening you with watching Cuties with him if you don't stop trying to bother him about dumb shit, basically. But yeah, if you don't know about Boogie and the warning shot, you should probably watch the Frank Hassel video. It's pretty funny. It's probably as controversial as anything on this album is, but it is pretty funny. Let's see. What's next? Next up is Boundaries. This one, unfortunately, doesn't have lyrics online yet. Max told me he was going to have the lyrics up on Friday when the album came out. They have not hit Genius yet. They're not on the Bandcamp release. It's unfortunate. I still do highly recommend purchasing MrGirl merch because there's a bunch of, like, aside from the CD and cassette, there's a bunch of really cool shirts and hoodies, and the Save Shaylin shirt really just, especially after hearing Boundaries, it's just like, wow, you really went there. But I think they all look pretty cool, and they're not that expensive. But yeah, Boundaries, this is the probably darkest, saddest song on the album. That's basically going through MrGirl's last 2 serious relationships, one of them being the current one, and just kind of spilling out all of the bad feelings left behind. The first girl being one that he obviously, like, intended to have an entire future with, was with for a long time, helped out with lots of issues, you know, and now she's pregnant with somebody else's baby, and so he's just kind of like, what the fuck? And, you know, I've had a relationship kind of like that. I've never felt nearly as intense as he does about it. If maybe I feel like things got better for me after the relationship was over, I don't know how he feels by comparison, because his description of the current relationship is still deeply problematic and filled with toxic elements on both of their parts. And, you know, a big part of the song is him basically saying, you know, other people are always going to pick you as the victim, but here's all the behavior that I'm familiar with, which, you know, all seems realistic to me. I'm not trying to be mean to Shaylin either. It's like it's just even being willing to share all this about your partner is its own form of toxic in a way. Although maybe she wants it or is interested in, you know, that message being out there, maybe it makes her feel better. I have no idea. You know, in my last relationship, me and my partner always encouraged each other to try to be open about stuff as much as possible on public spaces, and both of us were too open about shit, and I won't say any more about that. The tone of this song is, you know, from a place of like, I'm dealing with my own issues, I need certain boundaries, and you know, the other person he's with he's just like begging you, please, you know, like, this is the one thing I need from you. But the chorus of this song is very dark and over the top and sad. I'm finally free of you, oh, but I'm stuck with me. And like, I think it's really catchy. It sounds good. I think that MrGirl would benefit from having collaborators, having people who could sing some of these, you know, very imaginative hooks that I just don't think his voice can fully deliver on, particularly when he says, I'll just keep on searching forever. And it's like the emphasis he puts in it. Sometimes he makes himself sound like a little too Lonely Island, a little too, like, you know, clean and therefore comedic. Like, there's a song that we'll get to later where he does a lot of multi-tracking in the vocals, and I think that sounds the best. Like, it sounds the closest to what makes Eminem sound good. You know, the beats maybe aren't as filled out as they could be to match that level, but it's what he's going for in that song tracks. So after Boundaries, we have Emily Dickinson. This is a particularly bizarre song. Would you rather be famous and then forgotten forever, or live invisible now but be always remembered? Hiding in your bedroom, pen and ink on the pad, playing with your pussy with your finger while you finger your ass. So this is a song about a bizarre sexual fantasy involving Emily Dickinson, and basically how he relates to her in various ways, and has this sort of fear that, you know, at best, he might be somebody who, like, after his death is remembered for being, you know, like, revolutionary or for doing something unique. But, you know, he's also worried because for every 10 that we find, where's the lyric? For every 10 Emilys that we find, or everyone we find, we throw 10 in the trash. That's the lyric. But yeah, like, it's this, I would say that this song seems like it's meant to be for the type of, as he says at one point, my voice gets...
It's me.
Hello.
What are you recording?
MrGirl review.
How far in are you?
Like more than halfway.
Okay.
How this song reads to me is that it's addressed to the lonely, twisted girls who MrGirl is here to set off with this song. Because it weirdly sounds like a lovemaking song in, like, the music. So it feels like it's meant to be a semi-sincere sex song, or masturbation song at the very least. Particularly when you get to the chorus, which again sounds like a Lonely Island song to me. And I think there's possibly a way to deliver on this that made it feel a little bit less funny and a little bit more like, I don't know. I do know a type of girl who would legitimately be turned on by this song. You don't want them running to you, Max. You don't want that. You don't want that action. I like the line about this army of darkness is turning me into ash. Overall, Emily Dickinson, probably my least favorite song on the album, just because it is so conceptually weird in particular. It's not as relatable, I guess, or as much of a complete feeling story. But it's followed by my favorite track on the album, I Kill Pedophiles. This is just perfect because he's performing an over-the-top parody of all types of just, like, militant, violent, revolutionaries on the internet, so to speak. What's a better word for it? Zealots? Anybody who is, I kill pedophiles because I'm not one, is the first lyric of the song. I blow their balls off with a sawed-off shotgun, and if their victims turn out to like kids too, I kill them. And he just says it like that, so matter-of-factly. It's really fucking funny. But yeah, it's making fun of that mentality, obviously, of, like, people who are so over the top that, like, it says something strange about you if your reaction to any particular crime is like, yeah, I'd personally fucking murder them. And, like, I understand if you're talking about, like, oh, somebody touched my kids, it's totally different. But just, like, in a general sense, like, the reaction is over the top. And then he goes on to just go through all kinds of other categories that are different levels of memes in their own regard. My favorite, of course, is the last lyric. He says, I rape rapists and castrate rapists. Who else? I kill trans people if they fucking try to kill themselves. It's really funny. All of the lyrics in this part are pretty fucking funny. The first part of the song in particular is a classic verse. I would love to put together a remix of this song. I want to jump on, do a verse after that one, and then possibly have Vizier and Big Gay jump on it as well. But I'm going to go pretty fucking over the top if I jump on this song. But mostly I just want an excuse to sing along to the chorus, because it's my favorite part of the album. Please don't do this. I don't want to watch you die. Please don't hate me. I'm American as apple pie. I'm so sorry. Didn't mean to make you lose your mind. The dream is over. Fuck you, bitch. I'd rather rip out my eyes. It's perfect. I could sing that all day. It's been stuck in my head a lot. I love the upbeat tone of this song. I do think that generally MrGirl is at his best when he's doing, like, over-the-top comedy songs, because his voice just sounds better in this range, in, like, the, like, basically shouting the lyrics and getting, like, really aggressive and going more into that Eminem space. I think that when he does the sincere songs, he's almost overplaying the sincerity in, like, the technical delivery of the song instead of the emotional delivery of the song the way Eminem would do, where he'd just be like full front fucking, screaming every line of every lyric with the same level of intensity, and then multi-tracking it to make it sound even more intense. And that's where I think track 7 ends up sounding the best and the most like a good rap song, What Makes Me Horny, which the first half of, also similar to the last song, is like going down kind of a list conceptually of, like, funny things to say make you horny, particularly referential ones that kind of ease you into the darker, broad, general, stuff that makes him horny on the chorus and the later part of the song. But, like, so where each of these goes in their second verse, with I Kill Pedophiles, it becomes more of a song about, the effects of speaking your mind and, like, how much people turn against you when you really have, like, a controversial opinion or try to express something different. So it's still powerful, even if it's kind of a little bit different from, the hilarious bit that's going on in the first part. And on this song, it's more that it goes into, like, rapper mode and becomes... There's a couple songs that hit because of how emotional they are, more so than that I like them. And Boundaries is one of those where, like, I don't necessarily relate to or want to, even, like, be dragged down into thinking about all of the stuff on that song, necessarily. It's not my song. The way that some of the other ones on here are like, okay, this is something I've dealt with. I've been internet lynch mobbed for my opinions. I've been too edgy for people, and for the education system. I haven't had nearly as, traumatic a family background as MrGirl has. So it's interesting to me to hear him talk about these things and to see him willing to talk about them, perhaps because they affected him so strongly. Whereas I don't really feel like maybe as justified to talk about my own traumas because they're not as deep, they're not as, harsh realities for me to live in as what he seems to be going through, particularly with the song One More Day. And this is like the really sad, uplifting song. Kind of this reminds me of Andrew WK, particularly his album, not God is Partying, that's the newest one, but the one before that, Music is Worth Living For, is an album about that, like, life is worth, that it's worth struggling on, or at least trying, and that he wants you to do that, but it's from the lowest possible place. The chorus of the song is, give one more day to me, you can blow your fucking brains out tomorrow, you can blow your fucking brains out tomorrow, you can blow your fucking brains out tomorrow. It almost reminds me of the Mindless Self-Indulgence Backmask song where he's just singing, a motherfucker go kill yourself, a motherfucker go kill yourself. But like, yeah, the implication though is that, hey, you could listen to this every day and it'll always pump you through to the next day by reminding you that if you can give one more day to MrGirl so you can help him out with his own demons by knowing that he helped you out with your demons. That seems to be his goal, as stated a few times across the lyrics on this album. He's really proud of himself for pulling people up from the edge. He even accuses some of his haters of, like, how many times have you pushed people to, their doom versus how many times I've helped people up from it. That's what he's really taking pride in. So this song is for that. And I could definitely see the song working and really being emotional for certain people. I think for me, it's so sad that I won't even say it's overwrought. I think I connect with what he's talking about, like the reasons he's sad on the album. It's just, I am not this down in the dumps. And like, musically, the song follows a really nice trajectory of like build up, and the chorus sounds really good, but it's another one where, like, if there was a real singer, not to say that MrGirl's not a real singer, but if there was somebody who was like an amazing singer doing the blow your fucking brains out tomorrow, or like if there was an actual orchestra backing him as it goes into climax, that could get a little bit more intense, it would just be that much better. And like the fact that I'm even thinking about this is like, that shows me how far the song gets, like in approximating, the best version of itself, despite, again, being a one-man project, first album. So, yeah, I think it's powerful stuff. I think the whole album is very good. I think there are lyrics I would not repeat. There are songs on here I would never play for certain people. There are songs on here I have to play for certain people. There are people who will listen to this album and have an almost religious experience with it. There are people who, there's got to be somebody who this is their favorite album. And it's not necessarily me. I think I would take I Can Fantasize About Whatever I Want, I Kill Pedophiles, maybe What Makes Me Horny. That's another one I can't really see listening to in front of most people. Like, I can maybe see I Kill Pedophiles because the satire is on a high enough level that a lot of people would just run with it thinking it's funny, Like, it's not sincere enough to be a problem the way that a lot of the other songs on here would be for most people. So, like, I consider the reason I kind of had to go so in depth on this and even have Vizier help out with it is that, like, we're two of the only people who fall into this category of, like, people who would think this is funny, defensible, good as a piece of art, interesting, understand most of the references it's making and what MrGirl is going through. I'm sure that Riley's filled in some details based on the stuff from his video content where he talks about his life in more detail, but
Well, Trixie, I know that we had planned for me to pop in throughout the review and add some extra context or help figure out what a specific reference means, but it didn't seem like you needed too much help understanding the album, so I'll go ahead and toss out my wrap-up thoughts for anybody interested. Of course, I'd heard the ones that had been previously released already. I can fantasize about whatever I want. It's a great introduction track because it's full of clever rhymes and punchlines, but it isn't a shitpost, and is instead an introduction to MrGirl's traumas and a thesis statement about his quest to out all these verifiable sociopaths pretending to be normaler than everyone else because they say that they don't think or do sus shit. The repetition of "You can't stop what happens in my head" is followed by another 26 minutes of raw thoughts. Scapegoat is maintaining the same anger as in the first song, and potentially rightfully so. Oh, it's a witch hunt. Scapegoat seems to tackle both of the perspectives of the people who hate MrGirl, angry that he would put these suggestions in their head, as well as MrGirl's own response to the haters, a declaration that he's done being their bitch. I love the lyrical content on this one. There's an aware quality to everything he said, and lines like "the hate comes first, the reason comes later," and "you sure my songs are just jokes" are rooted in the way MrGirl is, not necessarily what he says or does. A lot of people think he is joking about cuties or the absolutism of his free speech values. I don't think that satire is the same as parody. I do think that parody is under the satirical umbrella, however, and has been utilized many times by MrGirl to make his points hit harder, and that not everyone can tell where the satire ends and the real opinion begins. That's a great thing for this content. That's what I want. As Max says on the first track on this album, "I never spare you the details, even if that's what you want. Like your uncle remarried to she-males, new aunts." The last one that I'll mention is "Hi Cuties." He says it's time to be a rapper now, and then he goes straight for it with the bars, the incendiary lyrical content. The hook is about the movie Cuties, of course, calling it the CP equivalent of Citizen Kane, and the song lashes out at the alarmist faux moral YouTubers and their fan bases who pretend to be saving the day from cancel culture by getting the stuff that they don't like banned. Fortunately for MrGirl, as he says, they couldn't even get the ban to stick. Yeah. That said, MrGirl isn't going anywhere. So if you're a MrGirl hater, just get out of the way, because the train is coming and there's nothing you can do to stop it.
Yeah, I think that this level of rawness and reality is so rare that it deserves to be celebrated because it almost certainly will get you thinking. And, even if you feel like, ew, this guy's gross, or like, this is way more extreme than I feel, good. That means it'll help you feel more normal. So yeah, I think it's definitely boundary pushing, and I would give it a 8 out of 10. That's it. If you like this video, please stick around for more reviews. I might do more long-form analytical ones like this, depending on if I find albums this inspiring. Vizier will also be contributing to more of the reviews, and we will be booting up artist interviews again at some point, posting more of our own music. Hurricane Season is our latest and greatest album that I highly recommend you listen to. Cranberry Dave's production really brought it to the next level, so I'm extremely proud of it. And yeah, subscribe, tell people about the channel, tell people about MrGirl if you think they can handle it, but it's not going to be many people. Oh, and don't forget, music is all about pushing boundaries.